fry some schnitzel so you can eat while we learn.
Trust me, he'll teach you how he disappears in middle and comes back. Mark will point it out. Don't worry. The other one wants to see a little bit what's going on over here. The cupboard.
Oh my gosh, I'll be there in about 10 minutes.
And then we got this. That'll be going on tomorrow. Pick it up, brisket. Brisket number 2.
If you could take some stills of that and post them on the group. I need some new posters for my wall.
I will.
I'm going to send some in Nelson.
No, you're not showing up. You don't get anything.
All of a sudden, there's 43 guys on the group.
By the way, Diaco, it was very nice for your son to visit us on Shabbos.
What? Which son?
Your son Gershon came to visit us on Shabbos.
Yeah.
He's told me, he's like, oh, you're here? That's the kind of place this is?
Where are you, Linda? Where are you?
Yeah, he got a
Highland Park.
He got a little taste of it over there.
Whenever you're ready, I started recording.
All right, let's go. So we did the last Gemara a little too fast, but so let's just start from it again. About 6-7 lines up on the bottom. Beis amah beis. Yeah. So we had asked about the doors, meaning if the Chachamim are learning that we learned that how the halachas of a doorway are from the Beis Hamikdash. So the Beis Hamikdash had the actual doors. So maybe you should also need to have actual doors when you're trying to make an eruv on a mavui. Right? So we answered, no, that the doors are not really for anything other than tznius. It's just to make it more hidden. So it's not really part of the halachic doorway of the Beis Hamikdash. Fine. So then the Gemara says, Elamiyata, 8 lines up. Elamiyata, loy tahani le tzuras ha-pesach. So the tzuras ha-pesach shouldn't work either. The heichel tzuras ha-pesach, the heichel had a tzuras ha-pesach, and afilu hachi eser amas hu derevach, and it's 10. You can only have it 10 amas wide. Alama tnan. Then why do we learn yesh le tzuras ha-pesach? Aval bisharocha me'es amas and it's tzarich l'mayit. If it has a tzuras ha-pesach, it can be even bigger than 10. Meaning the Gemara is asking is that the doorway in the Beis Hamikdash of the Heichal had a form of a doorway, right? And it was only 10 amas wide. So how come the Chachamim say that you're allowed, if you have a Tzuras HaPesach, a doorway, then it could even be bigger than 10 amas. It should only be 10 amas up to the way it was in the Beis Hamikdash. So Gemara answers, Midi Utayim Elul Rav. We're going according to Rav, right? Rav is the one who said this whole din. Not din. Rav is the one who said this whole reasoning is based on the size of the doors in the Beis Hamikdash. Hamasni le Rav Yehuda l'chiyah barav kamei the Rav ain't it tzarich l'mayit. Right? So Rav Chia barav said in front of Rav that you don't have to minimize the doorway, the Tzuras HaPesach. Amar lei, and Rav told him asnei tzarich l'mayit. I learned that you do have to be mimayit. So you see that Rav, who is the one who says that we learned out from the doorway, Taka holds that a Tzuras HaPesach can't be bigger than 10 amas. Right? So basically the Gemara, this is a fancy way of the Gemara saying, yes, that's true. Rav Taka says that you are not allowed to have a doorway bigger than 10 amas. Fine, Elameyatos, then the Gemara continues to ask, according to Rabanan, now I don't know if the Island remembers the picture. Oh, Michael Austin posted gave me a good picture today. I meant to send it out. All right, maybe I'll send it out later.
It's from the 8-minute daf.
From the 8-minute daf. He sent me out from the 8-minute daf. Now I don't have my phone on me to send it out.
I sent it to Lina.
Yeah, so maybe there's a picture of above.
I'm listening. Doorway, I'm looking.
The fancy design above the doorway of the Heichel. So basically, there was a fancy design above the hallway, above the opening of the Heichel. Right. So now we're going to learn later in a few lines that when the whole point of having something 20 amas is because if it's above 20 amas, you're not going to see it. So the whole thing is in order for you to see and then remind you not to carry outside of the mavui to the Rosh Hashanah. But if there's something very fancy that's higher, then that's going to remind you. Right? Now in the Beis Hamikdash, there was fancy things there. Yet we only say 20 amas. Why? You should be able to go higher than that. If if it has, you could see because it's fancy. You could have, because, okay, you just posted it, thank you, right? So the Gemara says, Elamiata loitahani le lasra. Right? Lasra means something fancy. The Gemara is going to discuss what that is later on in the bottom of the Amud. So it should not help to have an al-masra. The heichel al-masra havile. The heichel, the opening of the heichel, like we saw, has had an al-masra. But even so, it's only 20 amas. The Tran Chomish Amasrois Shomela Hoyu al Gabav. It had 5 amalthrois, which is 5 fancy design things made out of mela, which Gemara is going to say what that is soon. Hoyu al Gaba, Zula Malamizu, one on top of the other, but Zula Malamizu, one on top of the other. Right? So it was some sort of fancy design. So if that's the case, you should be able to go higher than 20 amas if you have a fancy design. That's the Gemara says, Behind my Tiyufta, what do you want to say? This is a question. Dilma, Kitanya, Hida Masrois, Ulam Tanya. Maybe, now, here's the thing. The Dilma here does not mean perhaps, like I just said. Dilma here means that it was. Not that perhaps. It definitely was. So Gemara is saying, what kind of question are you asking? The Amasrois were by the Ulam, right? Not by the Heichel. They didn't have the Gemara right now is thinking they did not have these fancy things by the Heichel. Again, the Rabanan learned it out from the doorway of the Heichel, which is only 20 amas high. The doorway to the Ulam was 40 amas high. Right? So they learned it out from the Heichel. So the Gemara is saying, but these designs were by the Ulam, not by the Heichel. So the Gemara says, "V'hai my kushya." What's your question? Dilma tavnis Heichel ketavnis Ulam. No, maybe the opening of the Heichel, which is the one the Rabbana learn out from, is the same as the opening of the Ulam. Alama Amar Rabbi Loi, Amar Rav. Why? So then, if that's the case, why did Rabbi Loi say in the name of Rav? He says that we're going to see later on that the din of this kaira, of this beam, is that it has to be thick enough that a half a brick will be able to lay on top of it and it'll be able to hold it. If it doesn't have a half a brick, then it's not kosher to be a beam by a mavui. Do not confuse this with our sticks and strings of an eruv. For an eruv of a tzuras pesach, it only needs a string. It doesn't have to hold on to anything. But for a mavui, it has to have a certain thickness enough to be able to hold a half a brick, right? But Rabbi Loi says in the name of Rab that if it's four tefachim wide, then even if it's not strong enough, and he says if it has a fancy design in it, even if it's higher than 20 amas, you don't have to lower it. Why not? Because it will cause people to look because it has this fancy design. So if that's the case, and you're learning it out from the Beis Hamikdash, but the Beis Hamikdash had a fancy design, yet we're saying it's only 20 amas. So how can Rabbi Loi say in the name of Rav, Rav is the one that's saying this whole din, that it could go above 20 if it has a design? Some Rabbi Yosef answers, Al-Masra Masnisi. No, Al-Masra is a brisa. It's not Rav. It's really a brisa that says it. So the Gemara says, Man Katanila, who learned it? Meaning, who says that it's a legitimate brisa? So Amar Abaye Chama Brei de Rabba Baravua Katanila. It's from Chama Brei de Rabba Baravua. But the Habi Al-Masra Masnisi. I'm sorry, he's the one that said it, and he's reliable. So clearly this was a legitimate brisa. So the Gemara says, "V'tihavi al-masra masnisa v'tikshi l'rav." So then good. So then let al-masra be a brisa, but the ma'ase it's a kasha on Rav, even though it's not Rav that said it. But if it's a brisa that said it, good. So now we have a brisa that says that if you have a fancy design on top of the doorway, it's allowed to be higher than 20 amas, right? And if you learn it out from the Beis Hamikdash, it's not. You can't learn it out from the. I'm sorry, you can't learn it out from the Beis Hamikdash because by the Beis Hamikdash, it had a 20 amas and it had a design, and we're saying it was a maximum 20 amas, not more than that. So Rav will answer you back. So basically, this is all the kasha on Rav who says the Chacham learn it out from the Beis Hamikdash. So Rav Dala no mehacham, remove me from the equation. So take me out of the picture. Masnisa meila kashin adadi. Do we not have a stira between brisas? Right? We said a brisa yesterday on Beis Hamikdash. We said the brisa says that it could only go up to 20, right? And this brisa seems to say that if it has a design, which it does, it can go above 20. So the brisas themselves are a contradiction. So Elamai is what do you want to say?
I don't understand this. The ulam and
Why?
the heichel. Mr. Ulam and the heichel was that size for whatever reason. It's not for anything practical. You're trying to learn a practical din, how people are going to act in the middle of the street crossing from 878 to Manor Lane. So what does it have to do with heichel? It has nothing to do with the heichel. You're learning.
I hear. So it could be. I think you're being mechaven to the Gemara's teretz that we're going to say in a few lines. I think that's what the Gemara's Gemara, the kavanas of the Gemara. Let's see. You tell me if you agree. I think that's what the Gemara is going to say. But either way, so the prices are a stira. So what are you going to say? Elamai Solamema Tanoihi. What are you going to say? It's a machlokes Tanoim, right? One Tana holds if you put a fancy design, it could be above 20 amas. And one Tana says even if it has a fancy design, it cannot go above 20 amas. It's a machlokes Tanoim. So he says, okay, Lititi Nami Tanoi. So I also say it's a machlokes Tanoim. And therefore, why are you asking questions on me? It's a machlokes Tanoim. I go with one of the Tanoim. Then the Gemara says, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, he disagrees. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar B'loi Rav Masnesa Dodi Loi Kashin. Without Rav, there would be no stira to the prices. Yeah. The Rabanan Kaira Ba'alma. I'm sorry, Kaira Taimamai. According to the Rabanan, why do you need a Kaira to only be 20 amas? So that people will recognize it. Right? This that we said that it's more than the Pesach of the Heichel, it shouldn't go higher than the opening of the Heichel. Simona ba'alma, that's just a simon. I think Rabanan, that's really what the Gemara's teretz is. It's saying he doesn't really learn it out from the Beis Hamikdash. He's saying 20 amas, above 20 amas is not, you're not going to see it. You're not going to notice it above 20 amas, right? And he says it's just a simon ba'alma, similar to the Heichel. But yes, theoretically, if you made some sort of fancy design on the beam that people will recognize it from way higher than 20 amas, then 100% it would work. I think that's essentially what it's saying, which is very interesting. So it comes out after a blot and a half, almost a blot and a half. We end up saying that Rav's reason, we're pretty much taking, Rav originally said that if Yehuda learns it out from the opening of the Ulam, 40 amas, and the Rabbanan learned it out from the opening of the Heichel, which is 20 amas. And now the Gemara pretty much, yesterday the Gemara nixed Rav Yehuda, and he said he didn't learn it out from there, he learns it out from palaces. And today the Gemara is saying that the Rabanan really don't learn it out from there either. They're just saying it's a simon.
So really, after a blot and a half, we realize you can go above 20 amos, basically.
Correct.
So really,
according to everybody. If it has a fancy design,
if it has a fancy design, so you can, okay, over 20 is fine.
Right, exactly, Naftali, exactly. After a blot and a half or a blot and a quarter, Rav's whole reason pretty much went out the window. Both of
Why do you think we don't say this by sukkah, this like Simona Hekera?
Well, one second. We're going to say that. Let's see the next line. Yeah.
Maybe you should put fancy designs on the top of the cabinets. It might help you in the sales. You should maybe look at the Gemara. Maybe it's a good thing.
Normally, people don't ask me for 20 amas high cabinets, but whatever.
Yeah, maybe you should do that. Maybe you'll be onto something. Anyways, okay. So Alma, so Gabi Sukkah. What did I read that? Did I skip? I skipped. Yeah. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. No, where am I up to?
Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak.
Yeah, right. Okay, I got up there. I thought the wrong one. Thank you. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Hanicha. So according to Rav Nachman Yitzchak Hanicha, like Svirulei had the Rabba. So if he doesn't hold the Rabba, so then it's very good, right? Which we're going to get to in a second. Which is Rabba talks about the difference between sukkah and mavui. But if he holds a Rabba, what does Rabba say? Right? It says, everybody knows this, right? That why do we sit in the sukkah? So that the Dairis should know that I put the Klal Yisrael in sukkahs, which we know there's two pshatim in that. Either that's the Ananei HaKavod, that Klal Yisrael, the Ananei HaKavod led Klal Yisrael in the Midbar, or it means that they actually sat in sukkahs. But either way, so ad esrim amah adam yidei shadar b'sukkah. Up until 20 amas, a person is aware that he's sitting in a sukkah. But above 20 amas, a person doesn't know if it's above 20 amas. That his eye is not going to see it because it's too high. So we see that by sukkah also. They're arguing. So Flugi betati lamali. Why do you need to have the same machlokes by mavui and by sukkah? Meaning, why do you have to have the machlokes that of whether this whole din is about the eyes seeing it or not? Right? What do you need? Why do you need two machlokes for? One should be fine. Yeah, but I think that was Binyomin. Was that you that asked that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, very good, excellent. So tzricha. So the Gemara says tzricha. Diashminu gabi sukkah. If you're going to say it by sukkah, b'hakam Rabbi Yehuda, there Rabbi Yehuda is going to say that it's fine. Kivan to the yeshiva avida, since a sukkah is meant to be sitting in shalta b'aina. Your eye is you're gonna sit there. I mean, when you're waiting for your meat to come out, right? You're just gonna sit and stare at the ceiling. So you're gonna notice the schach. Right? But a mavui, right? That's in the street. If people are busy running in the street, they don't have time to look up. So if it's above 20 amas, it's going to be too high. They're not going to recognize it. So you would say that Rabbi Yehuda would be moided to Rabanan that it has to be 20 amas. So therefore, we need to say the machlokes is by mavui too. That even Rabbi Yehuda holds even by mavui it can be above 20 amas. And if you say it here, Rabanan, right? Maybe there that's what Rabanan say it by mavui. But by sukkah, where people sit there and they just stare at the ceiling, Amos, Rabbi Yehuda. So maybe he would agree to Rabbi Yehuda. So tzricha, that's why we need the machlokes in both cases, right? So basically, what the Gemara is leaving off here is that the whole machlokes is based on a hecker of whether you know, whether you're going to be aware of something separating you from the mavui. Now, agav, just because it popped in my head, just to say it before we forget, and it just always bothered me. Part of our Eruv, Bez Hashem, if we have a class trip, we'll see this. Part of our Eruv goes pretty high. It's I don't know if it's above 20 amas. It's pretty close. So Atzuras Pesach has nothing to do with Heker.
You remind me, Tiago, I can bring my laser measuring tape.
Oh, okay, good, yeah. So some of them are quite high. Atzuras Pesach has nothing to do with whether people. Crossing 878 right there, that's a pretty high one. And then the ones that go over the telephone poles. But the truth is, I don't know if they make it 35 feet. It could be. Whatever it is, the point is that Atzuras Pesach has nothing to do with Heker. This is only for a mavui, because a mavui really you could carry in a mavui. We're just afraid that since it's a street, like a dead end, like we discussed yesterday, so we're afraid you're going to end up moving into Rosh Hashanah. So we wanted a pole there to remind you, like, hey, Ad Kana Eruv. But a Atzuras Pesach doesn't work from that type of thing. So therefore, Atzuras Pesach can be as high as you want, and it doesn't have any of the rules that we've discussed. Okay, well, we'll discuss that more as we go along. Okay, so my amah.
So you're saying to circumvent the 20 amos, you just make it a Atzuras Pesach? That's what you're saying?
Correct. Yes, you could do that. Yes, 100%. Yes. So my amah. So what is this amah? So Rav Chama Brei the Rabbi Rav Amar Kaini. It looks like what do you call it? A bird's nest, right? Some sort of design like that. Kiyosar Rav Dimi Omar Amri b'Marava Piski da Arza. It's something made out of wood. What do you call Arza again? Cedar, right? Cedar wood. It's these things made out of cedar wood. Mando or Piski da Arza Kol Shekin Keni. The one that says that it's made out of wood. So then, for sure, if you have designs of nests over there, and then for sure that's going to attract attention. But the one that says bird's nest, but maybe he would say that Piski da Arza is not going to be enough of a hecker, because at the end of the day, it's just a piece of wood.
You can have engraved pictures like this?
What?
You can have engraved pictures like this?
Yeah, as long as it's not the sun and the moon and the stars. Yeah, only the sun, the moon, the stars, and people. Yeah. Umando or Piskei Da'arza, my time. The one that says Piskei Da'arza, what's his reason? Why is he saying that it should be made out of cedar? Why does he not say it's the nests? The nafish mashche, right? Because it's very long, and that's because it's very long, a long piece of wood. So then that attracts attention. Right? Sukkah, the Nefish Mashre becoming Rabanan Delay. Oh, but what about a sukkah? Sukkah is also long. Sukkahs get to be quite large. And the Rabbanan say that that's not enough of a hecker. Right? They say only 20 amas, and that's it. Ella, even the Chashuv is like color. I think this is a very interesting rule here. Since it's Chashuv, since these pieces of wood is considered chashuv. So everybody, it has a voice. Literally means it has a voice that people know. Oh, look at that above that mavui. Look at that fancy design, fancy pieces of wood they have above their mavui. So then everybody's aware of it because everybody talks. We're all a bunch of yentas, right? So everybody knows about it. So therefore,
so then you're not running around as much. Then you're not running around as much, and you notice it.
No, you could be running around all you want, right? Bottom line is if I could be running. If a Lamborghini drives near me when I'm running and trying to get home, I'm gonna slow down to check it out, right? Because I'm a male. I'm part of male. You know what I mean, right? That's the way I understand this. So if you hear, get this nice piece of wood above the mavui, you're gonna stop and notice it, even if it's above 20. That's why I understand.
Jacob, not just a mill. Your father raised you right. No.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. I hope. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Whatever it is. Fine. Okay. So then the Gemara has an interesting.
What happened to the other kids?
What does that mean? Oh.
Parents,
so you see a big slab of meat.
Parents, so they learned how to drink, so they learned something else.
They definitely learned how to make some meat.
Right.
I heard
Correct.
Yaakov drink champagne. I heard Yaakov drink champagne.
On Purim, I drink champagne.
Nassan told us that's it. Dovey found out all your secrets. After he comes back, we're going to lay it all out on the law.
I got no secrets. Yeah. Okay, fine. Zok the Gemara. What's the Gemara we had in the end of Shabbos, right? If what day was I born on? Somebody who doesn't have any secrets. Tuesday? Was it Wednesday? I don't remember. One of those. Okay. Anyways, fine. So it's four lines down. Now, what happens if you have a case when we're saying that it has to be 20 amas high? Is that the bottom of the beam or is that the top of the beam? Meaning, can part of the beam go above 20 amas, or the entire thing has to be under, or we don't care? That's basically Shaila. The same thing with the schach, right? So mixas kaira b'soichas as esrum, or mixas kaira l'malam esrum. If half the beam or part of the beam is within 20, and part of the beam is above 20, mixas schach b'soich esrum, mixas schach l'malam esrum. Some of the schach is above 20, and some of the schach is below 20. What's the din? So Amarabba, but mavui kosher, the sukkah puzzle. Rabbi says by a mavui it's going to be kosher, by a sukkah it's going to be puzzle. Okay, what's the difference? Ma'ishna b'mavui the kosher. Why is a mavui kosher? Damrinan, because we say kloish. We say the word kloish, which means from the word. I think it means from the word kal, make it lighter. But I don't know if I'm right on that. Kloish means remove. What you do is you look at it as if the extra part is not there. That's the way Rashi says it. Ryan Ki'ilu Rashi. I'm reading Rashi. Ryan Ki'ilu Nitel Oisaya Uve Hayotzin Lamala to take Kairadaka. Basically, let's say the beam is a foot thick, and 6 inches of it go above 20. So we say, look at it like you just cut off the top 6. What does it hurt you, right? What does it hurt you if there's something above it? As long as there's a beam that's below 20, that's fine. That's what the Gemara thinks now.
It doesn't affect the shade. The fact is, it's still there. So how could you ignore it? It does affect the shade. It affects the sun. It affects what goes.
Oh, very good.
Light that goes in there.
Very good. So that the Gemara
how do you ignore it? It actually is there.
Yeah, you're right. So the Gemara is going to ask that. I think what you're asking, the Gemara is going to ask. Very good. So the Gemara says, Sukkah nami lema kloi. So why don't you say the same thing by Sukkah? Why are you saying that a Sukkah is puzzle? Say by a Sukkah, thin out some of the schach. So the Gemara says, I kalashes havi lechamas. Is that what you're saying, Rav David? Right? If you're going to thin it out, then it's the sun more than that's going to have more sun than shade. You passel it by a beam for a mavui. We don't care. Right? It's going to still have a mavui there that you're going to notice, but by the sukkah, it's going to be more sun than shade. So when it says hachanami iklashes havilei kairani telas beruach, if here too, if you're going to thin out that beam, it's going to lose its strength. Right? We said before that beam has to have a certain amount of strength, that it has to hold a half of a brick. But if you thin it out, then it's not going to hold a half a brick, so it's also going to be puzzle. El al karchov, nasa kishvudin shomateches. We look at it like it's a piece of metal, a metal pole, right? So, and therefore it could, even if it's thinner, it could still hold a half a brick. So, here too, by sukkah, we're also going to say that we look at it like it has more shade than sun, even though you may remove it and it might not have, but we're going to look at it like it has. right? Meaning, again, it's still there. We're just talking about virtually removing the schach. Lemaisa, it's going to have this more shade than sun. We're saying, like, virtually take it and move it out of the way, right? But Lemaisa, it's still, we're going to look at it like it still has more shade. So,
It's the opposite of all. It's the opposite of all the other things in the sukkah where they're never there, but we say they are there. The third wall is there, the fourth wall is there, everything is there. You know.
You say very good. I hear that. Aaron, what do you want to say?
I say it's like a COVID sukkah. Everything is virtual.
Ah, okay, yeah, good. Yes, very good. So good. So Amar Rabba Mipazik, sukkah de liyachid he. So Rabba Pazik has an answer. Sukkah that's made for the yachid, like midkar. You're not going to remember, right? So basically, you're going to think that, let's say the lower part of the schach gets removed. So you're not going to remember, well, 1 second, it's got to be below 20. And all of a sudden, your schach's above 20. Meaning, let's say you put the schach with trees. And then the part that's under the 20, dries up halfway through sukkahs, shrivels up, and then falls off. Now, all of a sudden, your sukkah is above 20. So if it's a yachid, you're not going to remember. Mavui, but a mavui that's meant for the public, if the bottom half of that beam is going to fall off, so then, you definitely got some kanoim. You may have busy people, right? But you're going to have the kanoim that are looking at that beam, and they're going to say, you got to make sure to take care of it.
Hard to imagine that something's going to go wrong with your schach and you're not going to notice it. And then the korah with the robin, people are going to notice. I would say the opposite.
Yeah.
Logic would tell you the opposite would happen. You're not going to notice what's happening in your own sukkah?
No, you're going to notice, but you're not going to chaf.
Yeah, but there's more people that's going to notice in the public.
The korah? How many people notice the korah on a weekly basis?
No, but if it starts, shriveling up and you lose part of your korah, then we're saying maybe there's more of a chance of people. But by sukkah, you might not realize. I don't think it's that you're purposely you're gonna mess up. You're not gonna realize that half of your schach fell down, and you're gonna say 1 second, the other half is above 20. Okay, listen, I hear what you're saying. I can hear your point. Maybe that's the other side of the Gemara, because the Gemara is gonna go through this. Let's see. No, it's part of the beam falls off. Part of the beam falls off.
In the middle?
Yeah, it cracks.
Stand up.
Sure it does. The upper half will stand up. Half of your beam cracks off. Okay, I'm not saying it's such a common thing for half of a beam to crack off. I agree, yeah. Okay. Ravina Amar Sukkah Dairaisa Chmiro Rabanan. Sukkah is a mitzvah Dairaisa, like we said yesterday. So the Chacham Machmer. Mavui the Rabanan like Chmiro Rabanan. Mavui, that's the Rabanan that the Chacham weren't Machmer for, and they said you could have it below. You could have part of it below 20 and part of it above 20. Ravada B'Masna says so now we say the exact same Gemara, but just the opposite. Ravada B'Masna, I know that was a steer in itself. Same Gemara, but the opposite. But the Gemara is, let's see. Ravada B'Masna, Masnilo Hashemites at the Rabba Ifcha. He learned Rabba exact opposite. Omar Rabba, the mavui puzzle, the sukkah ksheira. With the mavui, it's puzzle. Sukkah's kosher. Now we're going to have the same Gemara, just in the reverse. Maishno sukkah the ksheira damrina kloish. Why is the sukkah kosher? Because you say you're going to lighten up the schach and remove the top layer that's above 20. But mavui nami lema kloish. So why don't we say the same thing by mavui? So when it says ik kleshus havile kara, and he tells baruach. If you're going to take off the top part of the beam by the mavui, then it's not going to have the strength and it's going to get blown in the wind. So where it says hachanami kleshus havile chamsa marum mitzilasa. So by sukkah too, if you're going to take off the top half, you're going to have more sun than shade. Ella al
why by a mavui does it stare at all the top part? I mean, even if it's there, let them both be there. Who cares? By sukkah, it stares. The top stares the bottom. Why by a mavui? The bottom accomplishes regardless of the top. The point is a simon. Right. It's there. Who cares?
Yeah, very good. Very good. I hear that. I think, let's see the Gemara Amud Beis. Maybe the Gemara Amud Beis is saying that. I'm not sure. But let's wait till Amud Beis. Yeah? Very good. Elal karchach must be more shade. We look at it like there's more shade than sun. We look at the beam like it's made out of metal and it'll be able to hold the half a brick and it won't blow in the wind, even though it may not have the thickness for that if it were made out of wood. So I'm Rava mi parzika sukkah. So he answers it. Sukkah dili yachid he rami anafshu midkar. Right? Sukkah, that's a yachid. So it's going to be Rami on Nafshe, and he's going to be, meaning it's on him, Rami on Nafshe, Mitkar, and he's going to recognize it. David, that's what you're saying. Mavui de l'rabim, but a mavui that's for the public. Samchei adadi v'loy mitkari. People, everybody's going to say, the other guy's going to look at the Amri Inchi, because people say, there's a phrase that people say, Kedera de Beis Shutfi, if you have a pot from two partners, like Chamima like Karira, it never gets hot and never gets cold, meaning it just stays warm. You have two people taking care of something, right? You're never going to get it. You're never going to get it because each guy is going to say the other guy's taking care of it. I hope that's not the case tomorrow night, Bez Hashem, right? But it sounds like that's not the case. But the Gemara is saying that in the Rosh Hashanah, everybody says, the other guy's taking care of the Erev. The other guy's taking care of the Erev.
Well, nowadays, by us, we know you're taking care of the Erev. Somebody else is taking care of the Erev. So even if I see something wrong, I'm sure somebody else. I'm sure Tzvi I'm sure Tzvi Yaakov looked
You're
at it. I'm sure it's
100%
fine.
right. You're 100% right.
Hey, that falls into the whole issue of not calling up to see if it's actually good or not.
Right. Well, people don't. They just assume that it's up. Grata, this Friday, a guy texted me that he sees that he saw the Erev down, but it was not. But it wasn't something that was a necessary part of the Erev. But yeah, people should pay attention. But the bottom line is that everybody comes into shul, right? They expect the tissues to be on the table. They expect everything to be done right, and they don't realize that there's somebody that's behind it taking care of it, right? But everybody says, Yanam's going to take care of it.
Maybe it would help if the wire was yellow, or do you think?
If someone sees the ears down, don't they have a chiyuv to report it?
Yes, they do, but a lot of people say, we'll get taken care of. It'll get taken care of, which maybe nowadays that there are official people taking care of it, so that eliminates that. But if there wouldn't be, so if whatever comes out from this Gemara, both Stadim and the Gemara come out that it seems like there's a deep philosophical difference between these two versions of the Gemara, how we view the public. The first Gemara seems to be saying that the public is going to be very aware and they're going to do something about it. The second Gemara is saying, no, the public is just, everybody's going to rely on somebody else, right? That's a whole, besides for Halacha, having Halacha difference, it's really I don't know, it's a sociological thing, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's an interesting disagreement between the two versions of the Gemara.
It's called in psychology, it's called social loafing.
Social what?
Social loafing, L-O-A-F, social loafing. Everybody thinks somebody else is going to take care of it.
Social loafing.
Like loafer.
Right.
The other thing is,
there you go. So there's a term for that.
The other thing is, isn't there a time when you should not tell people the Erev is down? For example, people are walking around with their baby carriages, or they may not listen to you. Or they may not listen to you. Right.
Yeah, that's the Mutav Shiyushayin thing. But but I have news for you. Our Erev has never been down on Shabbos, because there is such a pressure to have our Erev because of exactly what you said, because people are going to carry anyways. Our Erev has not been down in, I don't even know, 30 years because of that pressure. It's also built well, but it's I have nothing to do with the building. But that is the pressure to make sure that the Erev is always up. Okay, Rav Rina Amar Sukkah Deraisa Loi Boy Chizuk Mavui the Rabanan Boy Chizuk. See, again, this is another interesting way to look at it from the world of psychology. No, doctor, the Sukkah Deraisa doesn't need Chizuk. People are scared of halachas from the Torah. Mavui the Rabanan, something that's Rabanan, so people are more lax with it. So Boy Chizuk, it needs more Chizuk, right? So again, that's different than the first version of the Gemara. The first version of the Gemara was the other way around. Something that's from the Torah, that's that we have to be more careful with, and the Rabbanon we don't have to be as careful. I don't know if it's a disagreement or just how to look at it differently. And then of course we have my Haviyallah. So my Haviyallah means what is the psak? What's the bottom line? So Rabba Baravula Amar Zev is apostle, Rav Amar Zev is kosher, right? The Gemara is looking for a final word. Okay, what's the deal? Does the schach have to be totally under 20 or not? And the Gemara says, what's the din? And of course, the Gemara brings a machlokes. Right? Rabba Baravula says they're both puzzle, and Rabba says they're both kosher. So that's interesting, because before, the Gemara was saying mavui is kosher, sukkah is puzzle, and the other version was the other way around. Here, they're both saying that they're same. Rabba Baravula is saying that they're both puzzle, and Rabba is saying they're both kosher. Right? Cholol sukkah tnan, cholol mavui tnan. The reason why he's saying that that they're kosher is because what it needs is it needs to have an opening, right? When it says that it needs to be high, 20 high, it has to be an opening, right? It's going on the opening. So as long as the opening is there, so then it's going to be fine, right? Fine. So Amalei Rav Rava Tani Demasayelach. Let me bring the raya to you, right? Rava is the one that said kosher, right? Let me bring the raya to you. Mavui should gavoy me'aser mama. If you have a mavui that's above 20 amos, yoiser mipischa shel heichel. If it's more than the opening of the heichel, right, which is 20 amos, you have to lower it. The heichel gufoy chalol yaser, and we know that the opening of the heichel was 20. Right, so that seems to be a raya. Right? Yeah, fine. That meaning you have 20 opening of 20 without counting the thickness of the beam. Yeah, Aser of Simi Baravash.
Not addressing at all the fact that what's above 20 is staring under 20.
Oh, I forgot about Yukasha. Yeah.
No, but they're not even addressing it now. It's saying chalas okatanan, very nice. The problem is they're staring. Just chalas okatanan, and you're good in that aspect. The problem is what's above 20 is staring the under 20.
You're asking why should it even have anything to do with it?
Just because you're good on the chol, you made it within the 20. You have to be within the 20 or by the 20. The problem with the Gemara keeps on having till now, by sukkah I understood it, because the tzel from the schach above the 20 is staring. By mavui I didn't even understand it. But either way, the Gemara's problem was that the top is staring the bottom, not where the bottom could be. Like, how are you getting rid of the problem? Even chalas okatanan. Chalas okatanan, but you can't have the top is staring though.
Okay, right. Okay, I hear. But how about the next kasha? Does the next kasha take care of this? Let's see. Let's maybe Aser of Rav Simi bar Rav Ashi Rav Papa. Ketzad, right? So saying Ketzad hayu oisa maniach kairam misfas eser mulamata. You put a beam from 20 and below, right? 10 between 20 and below. So that means that the top of the beam has to be within 20. So the Gemara says Ema ulamala. Say it means lamala, right? That's which is also interesting. What do you mean say it? It says lamata. It doesn't say that. It says lamala, which is lamata katani. What do you mean? It says lamata. I don't know exactly what the havamina was. Or kamashulon de lamata kilamala. That the bottom, what it means is the bottom is like the top. Mala chalola esrim, just like the above. The chalol is esrim. Af lamata chalola asara. So to lamata, the chalol is the sort of meaning when you have something that needs to be a minimum of 10 tefachim, right? We know the beam also, we didn't get to this yet, but the beam also has to be 10 tefachim high. The beam that's covering over the mavui, you can't just lay it on the floor. That's not enough. It has to be a minimum of 10 tefachim high. Otherwise, it's too low. People won't be able to see it, right? So there, just like there, it needs to be. You need to have a chalol of 10 tefachim. So we're saying the top one is also, but that's what lamata means. I hear it, Tuli. It's not really answering your kasha. I hear.
Tiago, song of the daf. You can ask my mush. Lamala lamata. No.
Oh, okay. Ferretz, you batting very good. You're batting 1,000, Ferretz. Okay. So now we get into quite an interesting Gemara here. I don't know if it's interesting so much, but I guess maybe not. As interesting goes, maybe it's not so interesting. But the shaila is an amah. Right, so we know an amah is a measurement, and an amah can either be made out of 5 tefachim or 6 tefachim. Right? So obviously, if it has a chumrah and a kula, depending on what you're trying to measure. Right? For example, when you want to measure, let's say the length of a lulav, right? So you want to be strict, then you're going to go with a larger amah. If you want to measure. If you want to make lavud, right, which is the opening in the sukkah, that you want to make sure your sukkah is kosher, so you're going to want to go with the smaller measurement. That's a chumrah. So we have the same thing here. The amah of a sukkah, the measurement of a sukkah, and the amah of a mavui, meaning we're saying it's 20 amas high, is the max. So we're saying, what is that amah comprised of? 5 tefachim or 6 tefachim? So we're saying we want to be strict. Right? So therefore, we're saying it's only 5, made out of 5 tefachim, so therefore it's going to actually be lower. Amas Klaim, amah bashisha, and Klaim, right, which is Klaim is when you take 2 different fruits and you plant them together or plant them close to each other. So there's a certain distance that they have to be away from each other. So there we want to go with the strict measurement. So therefore you go with the 6. Right? So basically whenever you're trying to have a smaller measurement, then you're going to go with the 5. If you're trying to make a larger measurement and you're trying to be machmer with that, then you're going to go with the 6, which is interesting because normally we know the rule is that a suffix Rabanan kula, suffix deraisa l'chumra. So really it should depend on whether we're talking about a deraisa or we're talking about a derabanan. Then it should really make a difference. So here the Gemara, we know that mavui is derabanan, and the Gemara is saying that sukkah and mavui all go with the 5, and the Klaim goes with 6. Let's see what this means. Amos mavui ba'amah bas chamisha l'mayachaza. What's the halacha? L'goyvai, but a height or l'pirtzas mavui, and if there's an opening in the mavui, which we're going to get to Be'ez Hashem in the next couple of blocks, because if a mavui, let's say the fence that surrounds Sutton Park or Harbor View or whatever it is, right? They get to break in the fence, so depending on how large it is, it might make the whole mavui puzzle, even if it has the beam in front. Right, so basically, whatever it is, it's the measurements, and we're going to try and make those measurements as small as possible. But there's also a kula by mavui, because we know that the minimum amount that a mavui could be is 4 amas, which the Gemara is going to discuss also later. Meaning, you can't just call something a mavui. If a mavui is less than 4 amas, which is approximately 6-7 feet, if that alleyway is smaller than that, then you cannot make it kosher with a beam because it's too small. It's too small to do that. It needs to be at least 4 amas. Good. So if you're going with a 5 tefach amah for that, you're going to end up being lenient, not strict. Meaning, but for the height and for the break in it, so that's going to end up being strict because if you go with a 5 tefach amah, your height is going to be a lot less than if you go with a 6 tefach amah. Right? You're going to be missing 20 tefachim of height. But if you're saying that the minimum shear is 4 amas, and that's how big it has to be, so by going with a 5 tefach amah, you're going to actually end up cutting it short by 4 tefachim. Right? So Gemara says, "Commander Bar tefachim." No, we're going to go with he's going with the opinion that says that the minimum amount of size for a mavui is 4 tefachim, not 4 amas. Viva Yisema, Ba'arba amas, B'roiv amas Gomer. It says Arba amas. And it's talking about roiv amas, meaning he's going with the opinion that says the mavui has to be 4 amas. But it doesn't mean that in every situation by mavui we're going to count it with 5. Just means most of the situations by mavui we're going to stay with 5. But there would be a situation where we're going to count it with 6, which is to meet the minimum requirement to be called a mavui. We're going to go with 6. Okay. Ama sukkah ba'ama bas chamisha l'mayachaza. What are you measuring a sukkah for 5? For the height, for a bent wall, we know that the halacha is that if you bend the wall, if you have a schach puzzle on the corner, on the edges of the sukkah, as long as it's less than 4 amas, we look at the wall that it's bent, right? So for there, we're going to go with the smaller measurement of 4 amas, so it ends up being a stricter measurement. We know that there are opinions that say that a sukkah has to have a minimum of 4 amas. And that would be a leniency. If you go with the 5 tefach amah, it's going to be a leniency to Tanya. Rabbi Aimer Ani, call sukkah shein but dalet amas psula. Rabbi says any sukkah that doesn't have 4 amas by 4 amas is puzzle. Now, if you're going to use that measurement with a 5 tefach amah instead of a 6 tefach amah, you are going to cut it short it's going to be more lenient by 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. So it's say Rabanan Damri afilu ena machzekas el roish v'rubi b'shulchan. No, this opinion, Abaya, in the name of Rav Nachman, is going according to the opinions that say the way we pass them, which is that the sukkah has to hold roishev v'rubai, the head of a person, most of the person, and his table. No, we could say really it is Rebbe, but roiv amas cover like we just said before. It's saying roiv of the time, most of the time, the amas by sukkah are going to be measured by 5, but there will be times where you're going to have to measure it with 6. Okay. Fine. So then that's by sukkah and mavui. Now what about Klaim? This gets a little complicated, but it's not so difficult. Amas Klaim, but Amas bashisha l'mayachaza. Right? What's the halacha for that? So karachas hakerem, the limchol hakerem. There's two different things. Karachas hakerem, literally, the literal translation of karachas means bald. Right? If you have a part of the field in the middle of a vineyard, right? The basic Klaim bekerem is grapes with wheat, and you plant them together. You plant them too close together, and that's Klaim. Meaning, even if you don't graft them, as long as they're close together, it's going to be a problem. Right? So, Michael, you posted a picture of this too. So there's two situations. If you have in middle of the vineyard, you have karachas, it's bald, meaning nothing grows. That's one. What? Clearing. It's clearing. Okay. And the limchol hakerem means around the outer part of the kerem, near the walls, you have a lot of space where you don't plant. Right? So those are the two things. So the Tanan karachas hakerem. What is the measurement? So if, again, I didn't explain it properly. So if you have this big empty patch of land in the middle of the kerem, how big does it have to be if I want to decide to plant? How big does that space have to be if I decide I want to plant wheat over there? And how big does it have to be around the edges of the vineyard if I want to, if I don't want to plant, if I want to plant wheat around there too? So karachas hakerem. Beis Hamikdash 24 amas. It needs to have 24 amas of space. It needs to have 16 amas of space. Umachol hakerem, and around the kerem, Beis Hamikdash 16 amas, Beis Hamikdash 2 amas. So in both cases, Beis Hamikdash is stricter. Beis Hillel is more mekel. So easy karachas hakerem. What is considered karachas hakerem? Kerem shecharav b'mtziisa. It's a kerem whose middle became destroyed. Right? Ein sham sheishes amas. If there's no 16 amas, there lo yavi zera. You can't bring other seeds there. L'sham, lo yavi zera l'sham. You can't bring seeds there. Hayu sham sheishes amas. But if there's 16 amas of empty land in the middle, they're nice and like kedei avedasai, right? Then you give it amount of work, the amount of space that it would take to do the work. And then you plant. Then you can plant by the rest of the field because it's not going to be mixed up. And what's going around the kerem? Ben kerem legader, between, that's talking about between the edge of the vineyard and the fence. Ain't sham shtei mesrei. If there's no 12 amas there, lo yavi zera l'sham, you cannot plant there. You sham shtei mesrei. But if there's 12 amas between the end of the vineyard of where the grapes are and the wall, then nice and like kedei avedasa, you just give them enough area to work, right? V'zerei asashar, and then you can plant to the rest. So that's what's talking about. So therefore, for this, when we're saying 16 amas or 12 amas or 24 amas, we're going to go with the 6 tefach one, which is going to make it bigger, which means that you're going to need much more of a space between the empty space where you're going to plant your wheat and your grapes. Right? Again, it does, even if we don't understand this case, which I can't say I understand it fully myself, but the main point we have to know is that by kerem, we're looking to make it as big an area, as big an area as possible. So if that's the case, we're going to go with the 6 tefachim amah, so that it's going to require you to have more space between your wheat and your grapes, right? But then the Gemara says, "Va'ika ritzufim ba'arba amas de lekula." But we can find a case where if you're going to say 4 amas, where there's a minimum measurement, and there you're going to want to go with the 5, not the 6, the lekula, because it's going to be a kula. Why? It's not kerem on the tua apachas mi'arba amas. If you have the way it was that in order for it to be considered a vineyard, you have to have at least 4 amas of space in between each row of whatever it is, of the grapes, let's say. Right? And if you don't have it, then that's not considered a kerem, and therefore you would be able to plant. So saying the minimum is 4 amas. So if that's the case, you want to go with the smaller amount, not the bigger amount. So Reb Shimon ain't a kerem. Reb Shimon says if you don't have 4 amas, it's not a kerem. But the Chum say it's kerem. The Ryan S. And then we look like if there's no 4 amas in between each row, then we look at it as if it doesn't exist. Bottom line is that there is a minimum measurement by Klaim. And if you go with 6, you're going to end up being more makel. So we should go with 5, which is the exact same question. Yeah, the art school has also a chart over there about this. But whatever. But again, even if we don't understand it, the point of the Gemara is that there's a minimum measurement also. And if you're going to go with the 6 tefachim, you're going to end up being more lenient not to qualify it as a kerem. And then you'll be able to plant wheat. So the Gemara answers Karabanan.
Why do I care if it's called a kerem or not?
No, because if it's not called the kerem, then you're allowed to plant wheat there because it's not Klaim kerem. Doesn't have a din of kerem.
So wouldn't I always want that? I'm saying if I had the choice, I would want that. It's
you would want that, right? You would want that, but Lamaisa, it's a leniency. So therefore, if we're looking for 4 Amos, if you go with the 6, then it's going to end up being more lenient. So really, like if we were saying with the rules that we always like to be more machma, so then you should go with your 5 tefach instead of the 4. So then the Gemara answers, he's going according to Rabanan who says, and Rav Shimon, really it goes according to Rav Shimon who holds it doesn't have a dinner keren, but Rav Amos Kamer, and it means right at the time, meaning most of the time, your measurement by Klaim is going to be 6 tefachim. Yes, granted, there'll be a situation where it's going to be 5 tefachim. That's fine, but we're just mentioning what happens at Rav at the time. Yeah, okay, that's enough for tonight. Then tomorrow, Beis Hashem, we start with whether we're talking about what type of tefach it is. If it's 4 fingers loose, 4 fingers tight, whatever it is. Okay. Oh, so tomorrow night it's by the Siyum, so we're gonna do it tomorrow night by the Siyum. Okay.
What time tomorrow night is the daf? Or what time is the Siyum, I mean?
The Siyum, I think. What time is Ma'ariv, Aaron?
Mincha Ma'ariv is 7:45. The Siyum we call for 8:15.
8:15, and then we'll do the daf around the same.
Mincha Ma'ariv in your house, Reb Aaron? Mincha Ma'ariv in your house?
Yeah, I have a minion outside in my backyard.
It's a set minion over there. That's it's got a tent.
Minion kavua, Rabbi. You're worried for me? You're worried for me for the halacha?
I'm not.
You mean you could say mugging off?
No, I was trying to get.
Rabbi.
I was giving you an opportunity to get political.
We want you to keep at least 1 halacha a week, so you'll be yours to do that.
Reb Aaron, I can't even do that.
Okay, we're giving you a shot. We're giving you a shot.
I went totally off the derech after Corona came out. I saw all the Rabanan went off the derech. I went after them.
Here we go.
The recording is still going.
Rabbi, good to see you. Good to see you, Rabbi.
Good to see you. You should come on up here.
Reb Aaron reminded me.